welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ash, and today I'm going to talk about my hysterectomy story, part 2. So today I'll go over the pre-op preparation, the day of the surgery, and the first few weeks of my recovery. If that's something that you're interested in, stay tuned. I had my hysterectomy on April 7th, so that was about 9 weeks ago at the time I'm recording this video. If you want to know what led up to me having the hysterectomy, I did do a separate video about that, so I'll link that up above. You can check that out if you want to know all about my fibroid story. But right now, let's go ahead and get into the pre-op preparation for the surgery. I had my pre-admission testing appointment 2 weeks before my surgery. During that appointment, we went over all of my insurance information, all of my instructions for the day before and the day of the surgery. I got my chlorhexidine wipes that I had to use the night before and the morning of the surgery. And I also got my lab work done. I had my pre-op appointment with my surgeon 1 week before my surgery. My surgery was on a Friday and I had the pre-op appointment the Thursday that week before. So I met my surgeon in person for the first time, even though I had already been in contact with her over the phone a few times, just because I was having so many issues leading up to the surgery. So she went over everything that has to do with the surgery itself. I did watch a couple of videos beforehand just to see what the surgery looks like from the outside, since obviously I would be asleep through the whole thing. But she told me all about the surgery that I was having, which was a Da Vinci robotic partial hysterectomy. So I got my uterus and my fallopian tubes and my cervix removed, and I kept my ovaries. So she gave me all the information that I needed about that. She let me know what the surgery length should be for a normal surgery, what I can expect for the downtime, and what I could expect during the recovery. My husband came to the appointment with me, so we had a whole list of questions to ask, and she was able to go over everything with us. I signed my consents during that appointment. We went over the lab results from the labs that I had done at pre-admission testing. Luckily, everything looked good. My hemoglobin, I think, was 11 at that point, and the cutoff for me to have surgery was 9. So I was good to go there. I also had to have a biopsy in the office at that appointment, which I wasn't absolutely prepared for. I just didn't know that was going to be happening when I went in, but it was pretty quick. It was extremely painful. Obviously, they're like poking a hole and taking some tissue from your uterus. So that was really painful, and I just had like a lot of cramping afterward for maybe 2 or 3 hours. I did take some Tylenol and that helped, but I was just so like exhausted and worn out and tired of everything at that point. So whatever. Got the biopsy done just to make sure that there were no malignant or cancerous cells before they start cutting into my uterus. I also asked her to take some pictures during the surgery, or take pictures of my uterus so that I could see actually what it looked like. Obviously, I had had a bunch of ultrasounds done before, and they talked about only the 3 largest fibroids, but I knew that it was going to be a lot worse than whatever it showed on the ultrasound, since they just said the 3 largest ones and then multiple other fibroids. The night before the surgery, my husband and I went out to dinner and just tried to forget about everything and have a nice evening out and not think about the surgery as much as possible. So in terms of surgery prep the night before, I had to make sure I didn't eat anything after midnight, and I think I stopped eating at around 10 p.m. I took my medications that night at 10 p.m. since I wasn't supposed to take anything in the morning. So that was just my Allegra and the last dose of the progesterone. And then as far as other prep, I took my shower and I did my first round of chlorhexidine wipes. So I had to wipe my whole body with these antibacterial wipes and wait for it to dry. and then, put my pajamas on. The chlorhexidine wipes were definitely my least favorite part because I just had to stand there damp and wait for my skin to dry, and I was absolutely freezing. But they're obviously very important for preventing any infections. I wasn't supposed to have any alcohol or anything like that the night before, which I didn't. And I think the last thing I did before I went to bed was just chugged a bunch of water since I knew I wasn't going to be able to have any in the morning. And then I just went to sleep. The morning of the surgery, I did my second round of CHG wipes and I wasn't able to shower that morning. So I was just supposed to shower the night before, do the CHG wipes, and then do the CHG wipes again in the morning. So that's what I did. I still brushed my teeth and washed my face and everything like normal. I still put deodorant on. It said not to put on any lotion, but I definitely wasn't about to go in there with no deodorant on. I just packed a little bag of things that I thought I would need the day of while I was waiting. So I put the obvious stuff, keys, phone, wallet, and I took my Kindle, I took some headphones, and I think I put a protein bar in my bag for afterward and just a change of clothes. I was definitely pretty nervous the morning of the surgery going into it. I had never had any kind of surgery like this before, so my nerves were at an all-time high. I definitely put on a playlist of pump up jams on the way into the hospital, but that helped me a little bit just to get myself pumped up and try to get out of my head. We drove my car to the hospital because I have an SUV and my husband has a sedan that's very low to the ground. And I knew that coming home, there's no way that I was going to be able to climb out of his car after having my abdomen cut into. So we took my car so I could just get in and out of it pretty easily. Once we got to the hospital, I went and checked in. That process was super quick since I had already verified everything at my pre-admission testing. And then once I went back to get prepped, I did have to go back by myself. My husband stayed out in the waiting room. I was really, really, really glad that my mother-in-law also came to sit in the waiting room with my husband. I know he was super duper nervous, so it was really great that she was there. And I was also happy just to have somebody else there for me as well. Once I actually got into a room in the pre-op area, my nerves kind of just dissipated. I felt very comfortable. I was in familiar surroundings because I had my surgery done at the hospital where I work. So I already knew everyone that worked in pre-op. I knew the nurse that did my intake. I picked the CRNA that was going to do my anesthesia, somebody that I'd worked with many times and that I trusted. So once I was there, I felt like I was in a comfortable environment. Even though it was really weird being on the other side of it, I still felt pretty safe and I was definitely very well cared for. As far as prep goes, I had my vitals checked, I had an IV put in, I had to get a COVID test, and at some point, maybe half an hour before I went in, I had to take some pre-op meds. I had to take some antibiotics, I think something for nausea, and something for my bladder. I don't really remember what everything was. I met the anesthesiologist that was going to be overseeing the case, and I did see my surgeon before I went in. She just happened to be walking by. This was hours before my surgery time. My arrival time at the hospital was 8 a.m. and my surgery was scheduled for 10 a.m. So I think I actually saw my surgeon before I even saw the nurse to get me all the way prepped after the tech had come in to do my vitals. I also met the OR nurse that was going to be in charge in the room, and I reminded her and reminded my surgeon to take pictures, so I was able to get pictures. Once I was all prepped and pretty much ready, I still had half an hour or so before it was my turn to go in, so my husband was able to come in and sit with me at that point. At the time, they were only allowing one family member in the pre-op area, so my mother-in-law had to hang out in the main waiting room, so we just FaceTimed her while I was waiting to go into the operating room. Once it was time for me to go into the OR, which everything went off 100% perfectly on time, my husband had to go back to the waiting room at that point. I had to give up my glasses, which made me completely blind. And then the CRNA came in, she verified my name, date of birth, and the procedure that I was having done. And then she gave me some Versed just to start getting me relaxed as she was wheeling me in. And between getting that and not having my glasses on, I was just like on another planet. I was feeling wonderful. Once I got into the OR, all I remember is getting some stickers put on my chest for the EKG. And the next thing I know, I'm being told to take a couple deep breaths into the ambu bag. And I think I took one breath before I was completely out. I don't remember anything else after that. Once I woke up in PACU, I think it was about 1:30 at that time. That was probably not the first time that I woke up, but that was when I woke up and stayed awake. I was able to squint hard enough to see that it was 1:30 on the digital clock that was hanging from the ceiling. And the feeling of relief that I had was just so powerful. That was the first thing I thought when I opened my eyes. I was like, oh, I can't see anything, but oh, yes, I made it. I'm alive and I'm okay. I knew I was okay. Like, I could feel my whole body. I knew that nothing had gone wrong. And based on what time it was, I knew that the surgery pretty much happened in a normal amount of time. So the first thing that I wanted to do when I woke up was pee. And of course I couldn't. I had a catheter in during the procedure and they must have taken it out right before I went over to PACU. So my bladder was empty, but I just had that feeling and that urge like I needed to pee. And that went on for hours. That was honestly what kept me at the hospital as long as I was. If I had been able to pee a little bit sooner, I probably could have left like an hour or two earlier than I did. But honestly, it really wasn't a big deal. Since I was awake, I was able to move from PACU over to the post-procedure area, which is like right on the other side of pre-procedure. So again, I was familiar with that environment. I know the staff that works over there. I was, as comfortable as I could be at that point. When I first got to post-procedure, I was feeling pretty much okay. I was definitely still very tired. I had a little bit of a sore throat, and I think that's about it. My abdomen felt very heavy, but I wasn't having any pain at that point. As soon as they took me over, I had to sit right in the chair. There's no stretchers or beds over there because they want you to be mobile as soon as possible after the surgery. So I sat there, I had more vitals done, and I got some like soda and crackers and some tea, which all of that stuff was absolutely disgusting. I could not wait to get home and get some real food. I kept getting up to go to the bathroom, trying, and I wasn't able to go. So I ended up having to get some more IV fluid. And with all of the getting up to go to the bathroom, at some point I did start to have a little bit of pain. So I got some pain meds, and then once that kicked in, I went out for a walk around the unit to try to get things moving. They brought my husband in pretty much as soon as I got over there, so he was with me the whole time. Again, they only let one person come back, so my mother-in-law was all alone in the waiting room by herself, which kind of sucked. Once we walked around a little bit and I was able to pee, then I got discharged home. At some point when I was still in the post-procedure area in between my little naps that I was taking, my surgeon did come in. She let me know that everything went absolutely great, 100% textbook, no problems at all. And my mother-in-law had the pictures, I think, in the waiting room. So I couldn't wait to see those as soon as we got out of the post-op area. So once we left, I was able to look at the pictures, and I'm going to put a warning in right now. I am going to show some pictures, and obviously they are graphic. I mean, it's a human organ. So if you're squeamish, now's the time to look away. So here is my uterus and my large collection of fibroids. This little area right here is my cervix, and a normal uterus should stop right about here. Everything else that you see is all fibroids. My surgeon did let me know that a normal uterus is about 60 grams weight, and mine was about 500 grams. So it was much bigger than normal. I knew it was going to be bad, but That was honestly even worse than I thought it was going to be. And I'm just so relieved that it is gone from my body. So my husband took off obviously the day of my surgery and the whole week after as well, so he could be at home with me. And I'm so thankful for that, because I really was not able to do much at all for like the first week or two. The day of the surgery, I got home at about 5:30, and I immediately wanted to get on the couch. I was still pretty tired. My mother-in-law came back with us as well, and she stayed with me while my husband went out to the pharmacy to pick up my prescriptions. I think at some point I ate some leftovers from dinner the night before, but I was still so tired that I just kind of kept falling asleep. At about 6 o'clock, I decided that I needed to make sure I stay on top of my pain regimen. So I took some Tylenol at that point. I had gotten Oxy while I was in the post-op area, so I decided I was going to alternate Tylenol and Oxy every 6 hours so that I could stay on top of my pain and not be in any type of discomfort. I also started my bowel regimen at that point. Obviously, when you have abdominal surgery, you can have a severe decrease in your bowel function. So I wanted to try to get ahead of that as soon as possible. I started taking my Senna and my Colace at the same time as the Tylenol. So I would take that every 12 hours at 6 o'clock. And I did Oxy and Gas X every 12 hours at 12 o'clock. That first night, I had a really hard time getting comfortable when I went to sleep, and ironically enough, I was actually up all night going to the bathroom peeing, even though that was the thing that kept me in the hospital the longest. I guess it all finally decided to come out, so I didn't get a great night's sleep that first night. The first day after the surgery, I felt surprisingly good. I was definitely a lot more mobile than I thought I would be. I wasn't sitting in bed all day. I was getting up, walking around the house. I think we also went out for a walk just like down the street outside to keep moving, and I was able to take a shower. I did still have my steri strips on my incisions, so I just had to be really careful with those when I was washing them. I just did that gently with a little bit of soap and water in my hands. I did have some soreness, but I wouldn't call it pain per se. Later in the day after the surgery, the gas pain did start getting really bad, so I was taking the Gas X every day as well. I had, again, a really hard time getting to sleep, but I think I ended up taking the Oxy again at midnight that first night after the surgery. So between that and the Gas X, I was able to get a pretty good night's sleep the first day after the surgery. Now, the rest of the first week definitely did not go as well as that very first day. I guess whatever anesthesia was lingering in my system had worn off at that point, so I was having more pain. I was having a lot of GI discomfort as far as gas pain, and I started getting really constipated. So I only took the Oxy for like 3 days because narcotics make constipation worse. I added Miralax to my bowel regimen. I made sure I was drinking a ton of water. I was walking around the house, and we went outside to take a walk pretty much every day that first week. But I was in a lot of discomfort. I was also very fatigued. I would like wake up at 10 or 11 in the morning, be awake for a couple of hours, and then I would have to nap for a little while, and then wake up again, and then I would go to bed for like another 11 or 12 hours. So that was pretty much my sleep schedule that first week. In addition to the gas pain, the other thing that was really excruciating was just the pain in my rectum. It was like absolute stabbing pain constantly. So whether I was trying to go to the bathroom or not, it was just pain all the time. It was the worst part of the whole recovery process, hands down. I had my follow-up appointment the week after my surgery, and I talked to my surgeon about the issues that I was having with the rectal pain and the constipation. So she put me on Epsom salt once a day to help get things moving. I got my steri strips taken off at my post-op appointment, and everything looked good. The incisions were healing up really nicely, and they're very, very tiny. So the only thing that I did differently now that they were open to air was that I put a little bit of Neosporin on them after I washed them, gently. We did have some friends come over a couple of days after the surgery. I think it must have been Monday or Tuesday, and they made dinner for us and brought that over, which was really, really nice because it was one less thing that my husband had to do because he was pretty much doing all of the cooking and the cleaning at that point. The second week was really, really terrible. Honestly, the constipation was absolutely excruciating. The rectal pain was excruciating. I couldn't even sit down comfortably, so I had to use like one of those inflatable donuts to sit on just to relieve the pain that I was having in my rectum. I was really, really, really fatigued, and my appetite was terrible because my GI system really wasn't working, so I didn't really have any appetite because I just kept putting things in and nothing was coming out. My doctor did call and check in on me, a couple of times after I saw her in the office just to see how things were going. And finally, I think 7 days, maybe 8 days after the surgery is when I was able to actually move my bowels. I took some Smooth Move tea, and the day that I took that, it cleared me right out, and the relief was immediate. Once I got over that constipation hurdle, things really weren't so bad. I was still having a lot of rectal pain, but it got better every single day. I did use some sitz bath just to kind of relieve the pain in the perineum, and that helped out tremendously. We had more friends come over for dinner the second week after my surgery, which was really nice. It just felt really good to know that I had a really solid support system. By day 12, I was feeling much, much better. And I actually wrote in my journal that that was the best that I had felt since before the surgery. I was down to like only taking the Tylenol maybe once a day at that point. I was able to walk further and further every day. And I was probably feeling about 85% back to normal by that time. Towards the end of the second week, I did start getting some insomnia, so my sleep schedule got really messed up for a while. That weekend of the second week was the first time I left the house for like not a doctor's appointment, and it felt pretty good to feel like I was getting back to normal. By week 3, I was really feeling pretty good. I think I was feeling too good because even though I felt better, it was still only 3 weeks after the surgery, so there was still a lot internally that needed to heal. And there were definitely a couple of times where I overexerted myself because I felt so good and ended up being, pretty sore in the abdomen for a day or two afterward. The main focus for me for the third week was getting my sleep schedule back on track because the insomnia that I had was really, really bad. I would stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning and then sleep until 11 o'clock. And I planned on going back to work 5 weeks post, so I really needed to get my sleep schedule back on track. Also, during the third week is when I had my first post-op period. So I had all of the same like PMS symptoms. I had breast tenderness, I had fatigue, I had a headache, I had some abdominal cramping, I was irritable. So basically, I had everything that I would have before I got my period. I just did not bleed at all. So that was interesting, and I've like talked to a couple people and watched a couple other videos about this, and apparently that's normal. I do still have my ovaries, so I am still having my normal hormonal cycle, so it makes sense that I would still, have period symptoms every couple of weeks. I was definitely able to do a lot more around the house. I was able to go out I was driving on my own. You know, I started driving by myself once I stopped taking the oxycodone, and I was getting back to normal. Week 4 was pretty much totally fine. I felt great. I was getting my sleep schedule back on track, and I went to my appointment so that I could get cleared to go back to work. And I did go back to work 5 weeks after my surgery, or I guess, yeah, the beginning of the 5th week. So I had my surgery done on April 7th, and I went back to work on May 8th. I had my follow-up appointment, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks after the surgery. And at that point, all of my restrictions were up, and, you know, the doctor just did an exam to check on the internal stitches. Everything looked good, and I was cleared to resume all of my normal activities. Wink, wink, hint, hint at that time. So I've pretty much been totally fine since then. I feel so much better than I have in years. I have so much energy. I'm able to get through my whole day without having to take a nap, which before I had the surgery, I pretty much would go to work, come home, fall asleep immediately for a couple of hours, and then I could kind of stay awake for a little while. Same thing on the weekends. I wasn't able to stay up all day just because I was so fatigued. I had no blood, no hemoglobin, no iron. But now that I'm keeping all of my blood and all of my iron in my body, I feel absolutely wonderful. My energy is at an all-time high, and I'm just so happy that I had this surgery. So that's it. That's my story all about my hysterectomy. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section, and make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos. Bye-bye for now.